Hi everyone, it's Lisa Mears. Thank you for joining me. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you the Spellbinders Universal Plate System. The Universal Plate System is a set of 7 plates that work in a manual die cutting machine such as Spellbinders Platinum, Platinum 6, and Big Shot machines. It will also work with most brands of thin metal cutting dies, steel rule dies, 2D embossing folders, and 3D embossing folders, not only from Spellbinders, but other companies as well, such as Sizzix, Stampin' Up!, Tim Holtz, Creative Expressions, and others. Spellbinders made this a universal system so that it will be the only plate system that you will need. What's unique about this system compared to the original Platinum system is that the plates are longer than the ones used in the traditional Platinum 6 machine, so they can accommodate larger dies, including slimline dies and embossing folders. In addition, the cutting platform is now divided into 2 pieces to allow for more configurations of products, including 3D embossing folders and products from other manufacturers that previously would not have worked in the Platinum machine. There are a total of 7 plates, including an adapter plate and a shim, so you can create even more layers in your die cutting machine, which will allow for even better results when cutting and embossing. So here is a look at all of the 7 plates included. The Platform A base is a little bit thinner, but not by much, than the original platform base. In this universal system, Spellbinders added a thin platform top, which is the B platform, to make up for the original thickness in the old system. You also have 2 cutting plates, and those are labeled C, and you also have the adapter plate, which is labeled D, followed by the embossing mat, as well as a shim. So here are all of the 7 plates that are included in the Spellbinders Universal Plate System. And with all of these plates, you have more options to create even more layers in your die cutting machine for even better results. So on the Platform A base, it does have directions for all of your die cutting and embossing sandwiches. So in this first column, it gives you instructions on how to build your sandwich when you're die cutting. In the middle column, it will show you how to build your sandwich when you need to emboss a cut shape. And then the top right hand corner will tell you how to build a standard embossing folder sandwich, and then the bottom right hand corner will tell you how to build a 3D embossing folder sandwich. So I want to show you the difference in the size of the cutting plates in this universal system compared to the Platinum 6 die cutting machine plates. So these 2 cutting plates are from the universal system, and then this gold glitter cutting plate is the size used in the Platinum 6 machine. And when I just compare the 2, you can see that the new system is a little bit longer, which will accommodate your slimline dies and your slimline embossing folders. To be exact, there is an actual 1-inch difference in length. So here I'm going to go ahead and measure my old plate, and my old plate is roughly 8 3/4 inches versus the new plate. When I measure that one comes out to be about 9 3/4 inches. As far as the width is the same, it's just the length is a little bit longer. The die cutting machine that I use is the Platinum die cutting machine with the 8.5-inch platform, which is a little bit larger than the Platinum 6 die cutting machine with the 6-inch platform. And because of that, I have a larger platform base, and I'm just showing you the difference here. So on my Platinum machine, my base is much larger in the width and the length, but I do want to show you that if you put these side by side, you can see that the one on the left is my original base, and it's a little bit thicker than the universal platform base. So with the new system, they created an additional platform B top that you can add as an additional layer. So I want to just show you that if you have the older system, the sandwiches are going to be different than with this new universal system. So you can see when you were doing embossing before, you had your standard cutting plate on top, followed by your embossing folder and the platform base. But with the new universal system, you'd have your cutting plate on the top, then the embossing embossing folder, then the platform B top, and then the platform base. So again, the sandwiches are a little bit different, and you can use the new system in either the Platinum 6 machine, which is the smaller machine, or in the Spellbinders larger machine, which is the Spellbinders Platinum. And before the universal plate system came out, if you wanted to use a 3D embossing folder, you had to purchase a 3D embossing plate, which was sold separately. But with the universal plate system, now you have an adapter plate included, which you can do all of your embossing with your 3D embossing folders. So I just want to show you again what all of these plates look like. So here again is the platform top. You can see that it is thinner and it just adds for an extra layer when you do need that extra layer. There's also a little bit of that plate thicker in the middle than on the top and bottom. You can see here how it's raised a little bit in the middle just when you need that extra pressure in the middle of your embossing or your die cutting. And then you have your two cutting plates, and then here is what the adapter plate looks like. So the adapter plate would be used when you're working with your 3D embossing folders, also when you want to emboss a cut shape. And then here is the embossing mat. It is a very flexible mat. You can use this when you are embossing a die cut. And then finally, the F plate is a shim, which is a very thin layer just when you needed to use an extra layer of pressure to get a really good impression. So I'm going to go ahead and pull out my Spellbinders Platinum machine. Remember, I have the larger machine, and some of you might have the Platinum 6 machine, which is smaller, but the universal system will work in both machines. So I want to go ahead and demonstrate some of the sandwiches that you would be creating with the universal plate system. And the first sandwich I want to show you is how to build a standard embossing folder sandwich. And once again, the instructions are listed on the Platform A base for you if you need those. So I'm going to start out with my Platform A base, and then I'm going to add my B platform top. So I'll just add that right to the top of that, and then I'm going to add my standard embossing folder with my paper inside. So this embossing folder that I'm using is the Party Spots embossing folder from Spellbinders. It's just a standard embossing folder, but it is one of their new slimline embossing folders, which measures 8.5 by 5.5 inches. So you can see how the cutting plate, it fits over that perfectly. So I just add the cutting plate to the top, and then I'm going to run that through my die cutting machine. And after I run that through, I'm going to go ahead and open up this embossing folder, and you can see the beautiful embossed print that gives on that cardstock. Look how beautiful that is. So again, this is just your standard embossing folder, and I do want to let you know that the sandwiches are going to be different depending on what company embossing folder you're using, and I'll show you a little tip and trick on that in just a few minutes. So next I'm going to show you how to build a 3D embossing folder sandwich, and Spellbinders has come out with a lot of brand new 3D embossing folders, and this is one of them. This one is called Tufted, and if you stick around towards the end of the video, I'm going to show you all 10 of the brand new 3D embossing folders that I received from Spellbinders. And when using any of the Spellbinders 3D embossing folders, you will need to have this universal plate system in order to get the best results from these 3D embossing folders. So for the sandwich, for the 3D embossing folders, you have your platform base at the bottom, then you have your 3D embossing folder with your paper inside, and then you have the adapter plate, which is the D plate right on top. I'm going to go ahead and run that through my die cutting machine, and now I'm going to go ahead and open up that embossing folder and look at that gorgeous 3D design. Look at all of the detail in that cardstock. I think these 3D embossing folders are so beautiful, and again at the end of this video I will be showing you all of the new ones available on the Spellbinders website. So on the Spellbinders website, there is a sheet that lists instructions for the recommended sandwiches for different brands of embossing folders. So you can see that it does include some from the Fun Stamper's Journey, also Sizzix, Tim Holtz, Stamping Up, Creative Expressions, Alt New, and Nellie's Choice. And it gives you the recommended sandwiches, which are listed here at the bottom for the best impressions for those embossing folders. There are some brands that aren't listed on that sheet, and for example, the one that I have here that I'm demonstrating is the Simon Says Stamp 3D embossing folder, which I have here on the top, and you can see that it's much thicker than the Spellbinders 3D embossing folder. So I'm going to go ahead and run this through my die cutting machine. I want you to see the sandwich that I use because some of you might have the Simon Says Stamp 3D embossing folders. So I'm going to start with my Platform A base, and then I'm going to add my embossing folder, and I actually added the platform top on top of that, and then I'm adding a shim. I'm going to go ahead and run this through my die cutting machine. And when that finishes, I'll go ahead and open up my embossing folder, and you can see that 3D design on that cardstock. So it's absolutely beautiful. So what I've done is I just made a note on the bottom of that sheet that I showed you earlier with all of those other instructions for the different brands that I have and their corresponding sandwich. So this is the Pink and Main Daisies embossing folder. So this is just a regular embossing folder, and I'm going to start by using the regular sandwich that is listed on the platform base, which is to add the platform base. Next is to add the platform top, followed by the standard embossing folder with the cardstock inside, and then the cutting plate. I'm going to go ahead and run this through my die cutting machine, and you can see that it didn't give me a very good impression that first time, so I'm going to try this sandwich again. And I am going to go ahead and add the platform top to the platform base, add the embossing folder, add a cutting plate, C, and add a shim on top of that. And with the shim, I did find that I got much better results with the Pink and Main embossing folder. So you can see that I have a much better impression this time around by adding the shim. Next, I wanted to experiment with some very intricate dies. So this die is from the Spellbinders Scalloped Symphony note card set of dies. I'm going to go ahead and follow the instructions in the first column on the platform base for building a cutting die sandwich. So I had my platform base, which is A, and then I added the B platform top, followed by a cutting plate, C. Next, I'm going to add my paper and then my die face down. And next, I'm going to add another cutting plate, C, right on top, and I'm going to run this through my die cutting machine. And after I die cut that, look how easy all of those pieces fall out of that die. I'm just using a little brush tool here just to get all of the extra pieces out, but look at the detail on that. I only had to run that through the die cutting machine one time, and it gave me a very clean impression. Next, I wanted to take a background die that had a lot of cut marks on it. This is the Plaid background die from the Stamps of Life. So I'm going to go ahead and test this out with the universal plate system. So I started out with the A platform base, followed by the B platform top. Next, I'm going to be using the cutting plate C, followed by a piece of cardstock, and then my die is going to be face down. I'm just going to add the rectangle right around that background die to cut it out of the paper, and then I'm going to add my cutting plate C on top of that, run that through my die cutting machine. So once that finishes die cutting, I'm going to go ahead and remove this, and I see that it did not cut through all of the way. So what I'm going to do is just remove the piece that cut out with the rectangle, and I know I need to increase the pressure on this die against the paper in order for it to cut smoothly. So the only thing that I'm going to add is my layer F shim, and I'm going to go ahead and run this through my die cutting machine. You can see that it had a lot more pressure there, and now when I remove this die, everything cut out. So I'm just going to use my brush tool, and I'm just going to get all of those pieces out of there. I am going to remove my die cutting machine because I'm going to have a lot of little pieces here. I don't want to get that all in my die cutting machine. I'd rather get it on the table and then just vacuum that up. So you can see that it cut super clean just by adding that shim to that die cutting sandwich. So here's a look at the end result of that background die cut after I've brushed all of those little pieces away, but you can see just by adding that shim you get a clean cut. The last sandwich I want to show you is when you have a die that you want to die cut, but it also has some embossing in the die. So you can see all the embossed lines on here. I want to show you how to use this to add the embossed detail to your die cut. So I've already die cut the die, and now I'm just going to show you how to do the embossing. So I'm using my platform A base followed by the platform B top. I put my die face up with the die cut paper inside the die. I'm going to add my E embossing mat followed by the D adapter plate. I'll go ahead and run that through my die cutting machine, and then I'm going to go ahead and take out the die. I'm going to go ahead and use my pokey tool here just to get that die cut shape out of the die, and you can see all of the embossing that is now in the middle of that die cut piece. It was pressed into the cardstock from that die. So here I want to go ahead and show you all of the brand new 3D embossing folders from Spellbinders. These embossing folders are larger in size, so they are perfect for your slimline cards. They are perfect for 5x7 cards, and you can even use these for your A2 cards. These embossing folders are 8.5 inches by 5.5 inches. I will have links for all of these embossing folders down in the description box below, but remember, if you are interested in purchasing these embossing folders, you will get the best results with the Spellbinders Universal Plate System. So this first one here is called Knock on Wood. It has this beautiful wood grain pattern. And then here we have the Tile Mosaic embossing folder, and a lot of these embossing folders look beautiful on both the front and back of the cardstock. This next one is called Beautiful Blooms. It has some beautiful flowers on that embossing folder. You can take some ink and you can color in all of those flowers and the leaves, and that would make a beautiful background. This next embossing folder is called Circle Illusion. And then there is the Beveled Diamonds. I just love the embossed detail on these 3D embossing folders. Next up is the Origami Folds. Look how pretty that one is. That one also looks good on both the front and the back. Absolutely gorgeous. This next 3D embossing folder is the Puff Dotty embossing folder. Next is the Tufted embossing folder. I love this one. I think it's so pretty. Next up is the Corrugated embossing folder. I embossed this on some craft cardstock to give it that cardboard look, but of course you can use any color cardstock for that. And this last one is the Leafy embossing folder. It has all of these beautiful leaves, and I embossed that on some green cardstock. I'm not making any cards today, but will have these embossing folders in upcoming card videos. Once again, all product links will be down in the description box below. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below as well. Thanks for watching and have a great day. Bye-bye.